The call that changed everything. Daniel Bradford stared at the glowing screen of his laptop, eyes burning from another late night. The architectural plans for the Riverside complex sprawled across 3 monitors, each line and measurement representing months of work. At 34, he had built a career that demanded everything, and he had given it willingly, especially after the divorce. The apartment felt too large, too quiet. He had chosen it that way. Space meant fewer memories. His phone buzzed against the glass desk. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. "This is Daniel Bradford," he answered, his voice flat with exhaustion. "Mr. Bradford, this is Kevin Walsh calling from Memorial General Hospital." The voice was calm, but urgent. "I'm a nurse in the emergency department. You're listed as the primary emergency contact for Rebecca Montgomery." The name hit him like cold water. Becca. His mind went blank for 3 full seconds. What happened? Daniel stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and crashed into the bookshelf. "She was in a car accident about an hour ago. Severe internal injuries. We need someone here to authorize emergency surgery. She's unconscious, and according to our records, you're the only person legally able to make medical decisions." Daniel's hands shook. "I'm on my way. Tell the doctors to do whatever they need to do. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He grabbed his keys and jacket, not bothering to change out of his worn t-shirt and jeans. The elevator ride down felt like falling. 3 years. 3 years since he had last seen her face, heard her voice, watched her walk out of the coffee shop where they had met to sign the divorce papers, racing through the storm rain, hammered the windshield as Daniel pushed his car through empty streets. Red lights blurred past. He barely registered them. Thunder rolled overhead, and lightning split the sky in jagged white lines. His mind replayed that final conversation, the one that had ended everything. "I can't compete with your blueprints anymore, Daniel," Becca had said, her voice quiet but firm. "I wake up alone. I eat dinner alone. I celebrate alone. You're always here, but you're never present. I don't want to be married to a ghost," he had tried to explain. The Henderson project was crucial. The lakefront renovation needed his attention. Just a few more months, and things would calm down, but she had already made her decision. "I don't want a few more months of promises. I want a husband who chooses me, not one who schedules me between meetings." Daniel had let her go. He told himself it was for the best. She deserved someone who could give her the attention she needed. He had thrown himself deeper into work, accepting every challenging project, every impossible deadline. Now, racing through rain-soaked streets toward a hospital. He realized that he had been running from the biggest failure of his life, the hospital. Corridor Memorial General Hospital glowed like a beacon in the storm. Daniel parked haphazardly and ran through the automatic doors. Water dripping from his hair and jacket, Becca Montgomery. "Emergency surgery," he said breathlessly to the woman at the reception desk. "4th floor, surgical wing. Elevator on your right." The fluorescent lights felt too bright, too harsh. The antiseptic smell made his stomach turn. A nurse spotted him immediately. "Mr. Bradford, I'm Kevin Walsh. We spoke on the phone. Follow me, please." They moved quickly through hallways that all looked the same. Kevin spoke rapidly. "Dr. Green is waiting for you. Miss Montgomery has internal bleeding and possible cardiac trauma. Every minute counts." They stopped outside a consultation room. Through the small window, Daniel could see a woman in surgical scrubs reviewing charts. Kevin knocked twice and pushed the door open. Dr. Patricia Green looked up. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and steady hands. "Mr. Bradford, thank you for coming so quickly. Please, sit down." "I'd rather stand." "How bad is it?" Dr. Green respected his directness. "Very bad. The accident caused severe chest trauma. Her heart is under significant stress. We need to operate immediately to stop internal bleeding and assess cardiac damage. Without surgery, she won't survive the night." She placed papers on the desk in front of him. "I need your signature here, here, and here. These authorize emergency surgical intervention." Daniel picked up the pen. His hand trembled as he signed his name 3 times. Each signature felt heavy, like he was signing away pieces of his soul. "Why is it still me?" he asked quietly, staring at his own name printed on the forms. "Why didn't she change her emergency contact?" Dr. Green's expression softened slightly. "That's a question only she can answer, Mr. Bradford. If she survives, the waiting room, the surgical waiting area, was cold and impersonal." Uncomfortable chairs lined the walls beneath motivational posters that felt cruelly ironic. Daniel sat with his head in his hands, watching the red light above the operating room doors. Surgery in progress? Time became meaningless. Minutes felt like hours. He counted the tiles on the floor. He memorized the pattern on the wallpaper. He did anything to avoid thinking about the reality of what was happening behind those doors. The elevator chimed. Daniel looked up. A young woman with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail stepped out. She wore paint-stained jeans and an oversized sweater. Her eyes were red from crying. When she saw Daniel, those eyes hardened into something cold and sharp. Amanda Montgomery. "Becca's sister." "You," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "They called you." Daniel stood up slowly. "Amanda, I'm so sorry." "Sorry." She walked toward him, each step deliberate. "You've been sorry for 3 years, Daniel. Sorry didn't fix anything then? It won't fix anything now." "I know, but I'm here." Amanda stopped a few feet away from him, studying his face. "She never changed your name in her medical records. Did you know that? 3 years, and she still had you listed. Even after everything, even after you chose your career over her, she still trusted that if something happened, you would come." The words cut deeper than any blade. Daniel had no defense, no excuse worth offering. "Is she going to make it?" Amanda asked, her anger crumbling into fear. "I don't know." Dr. Green said the next few hours are critical. Amanda sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Daniel sat down 2 seats away, giving her space. They waited in tense silence, 2 people bound together by love for the same woman, separated by the past that neither could change. The longest wait an hour passed, then another. The red light continued to glow. Kevin Walsh appeared periodically with updates. "Surgery is progressing. Dr. Green is one of the best. Your wife is in good hands." His wife. Amanda corrected sharply. Kevin nodded apologetically and left. Daniel stood and walked to the vending machine. More for something to do than from any desire for food or drink. He fed coins into the slot and watched a bottle of water tumble down. When he turned around, Amanda was standing right behind him. "Tell me something," she said quietly. "Did you ever actually love my sister? Or was she just convenient until she became inconvenient?" The question hurt because it was fair. Daniel met her eyes. "I loved her more than I knew how to show. And by the time I figured out how to say it, she was already gone." "That's not good enough." "I know, but it's the truth." Amanda's expression shifted slightly. Not forgiveness, but perhaps a small crack in her anger. "When Becca was packing up her things from your apartment, she cried for 3 days straight. She kept one of your old college sweatshirts. She would put it on at night when she couldn't sleep. She told me she was pathetic for still loving someone who didn't love her back." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "I never stopped loving her. I just stopped knowing how to be the person she needed. And maybe it's time you learned." Before Daniel could respond, the operating room doors swung open. Dr. Green emerged, pulling down her surgical mask. Her face was tired but calm. Both Daniel and Amanda rushed forward. "She's stable," Dr. Green said, and Daniel felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. "We've repaired the internal bleeding and stabilized her heart rhythm. But she's in a medically induced coma. The next 72 hours will determine everything. We need to monitor for complications, brain swelling, cardiac events. Can we see her?" Amanda asked. "Soon we're moving her to the intensive care unit now. 1 visitor at a time, and only for a few minutes." Dr. Green looked at Daniel. "Mr. Bradford, there's something else. Among her personal effects, there's a sealed envelope with your name on it. The paramedics found it in her car. I thought you should know." Daniel's heart skipped. "An envelope? It's with her belongings at the nurse's station. Whether you open it now or wait until she wakes up. That's your decision. The envelope the nurse's station was busy with the controlled chaos of a hospital night shift. A young nurse with kind eyes handed Daniel a large manila envelope. His name was written across the front in Becca's handwriting, slightly smudged, as if she had written it in a hurry. Amanda watched him hold it. "Are you going to open it?" Daniel stared at the envelope, feeling the weight of it in his hands. Inside could be anything. A goodbye letter. Final words she wanted him to have. Closure he wasn't sure he wanted. "Not yet," he said softly. "Not until she can give it to me herself. If these are her last words to me, I want her to be there when I read them." Amanda nodded slowly. "That might be the first right decision you've made in years." They were allowed into the ICU one at a time. Amanda went first, staying for exactly 5 minutes before emerging with tears streaming down her face. "She looks so small," was all she said. Then it was Daniel's turn. The ICU was a maze of beeping machines and hushed voices. A nurse led him to a curtained area at the far end. "5 minutes, Mr. Bradford, and please, keep your voice calm. We don't know how much she can hear, but any stress could affect her heart." Daniel nodded and stepped through the curtain. Nothing could have prepared him for seeing her like this. Becca lay motionless in the hospital bed, connected to a web of tubes and wires. Machines monitored her heartbeat, her breathing, her blood pressure. Her face was pale, almost translucent under the harsh lights. A ventilator breathed for her in steady, mechanical rhythms. But she was alive. Daniel moved closer, his legs feeling weak. He pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down carefully, afraid that even the sound of the chair scraping the floor might somehow hurt her. "Hey, Becca," he whispered. "It's me. It's Daniel." No response. Just the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. He reached out slowly and took her hand. It was cold. He wrapped both of his hands around it, trying to warm her fingers. "I don't know if you can hear me," he continued, his voice breaking, "but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere this time. I promise." The heart monitor beeped steadily. Beep, beep, beep. "I'm so sorry, Becca, for everything. For choosing work over you. For letting you walk away. For not fighting harder. For being too stupid and too stubborn to see what I was losing until it was already gone." A tear rolled down his cheek and dropped onto their joined hands. "You kept my name in your records. Even after everything, you still trusted me enough to be the person they called. I don't deserve that trust, but I'm going to spend however long it takes trying to earn it back." The nurse appeared at the curtain. "Time's up, Mr. Bradford." Daniel stood reluctantly, still holding Becca's hand. He leaned down and placed the gentlest kiss on her forehead. "Don't give up, Becca. Please don't give up. We have too much left unfinished." As he walked out of the ICU, the envelope felt heavier in his jacket pocket. Whatever words waited inside, he would face them. But first, Becca needed to wake up first. She needed to live. The first morning pale sunlight filtered through the hospital windows, turning everything a washed-out gray. Daniel hadn't slept. He sat in the same uncomfortable chair, watching nurses move efficiently through their routines, listening to the constant symphony of beeping machines and hushed conversations. Amanda had gone home around 4 in the morning to shower and change. She promised to return with coffee and real food, though Daniel doubted he could eat anything. His stomach had been twisted in knots since the phone call. Dr. Green appeared at 7, clipboard in hand. She looked tired but alert. "Mr. Bradford, you're still here." I told her I wouldn't leave. The doctor nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Walk with me. We need to discuss the recovery protocol." They moved to a small conference room down the hall. Dr. Green spread several documents across the table. "Rebecca's condition is stable, but fragile. We're keeping her sedated for another 24 hours to let her body focus on healing. When we begin waking her up, the process will be gradual." Daniel leaned forward, absorbing every word. "Her heart sustained significant trauma," Dr. Green continued. "We've placed her on medication to regulate her rhythm, but stress is now her biggest enemy. Any emotional shock, any sudden distress, could trigger cardiac complications. Do you understand what I'm saying?" You're saying I might be a risk to her recovery? Dr. Green's expression softened. I'm saying that whatever history exists between you two, it needs to be handled with extreme care. She'll need calm, stability, and positive emotional support. The first few weeks are critical. Daniel absorbed this. What else do I need to know? She'll need someone with her constantly for the first month. Not just for medical reasons, but emotional ones. Heart attack survivors often experience anxiety, depression, and fear. She'll need reassurance, patience, and consistent presence. The irony wasn't lost on Daniel. Consistent presence had been his greatest failure in their marriage. I'll be here, he said firmly. Whatever she needs. Dr. Green studied him for a moment. There's one more thing. We found elevated stress hormones in her blood work from before the accident. Her medical history shows she's been treated for anxiety. Has she experienced any major life stressors recently? Daniel shook his head. I don't know. We haven't spoken in 3 years. Something was affecting her heart even before the crash. I'll need her medical records from her primary care physician. Can you help arrange that? I'll talk to her sister. Amanda will know. The belongings after meeting with Dr. Green, Daniel returned to the ICU waiting area. On the table sat a clear plastic bag containing Becca's personal items from the accident. Her phone with its shattered screen, a leather wallet, keys, a small Canon camera, and the envelope with his name. Daniel picked up the camera carefully. It was an older model, well used, with scratches on the body and a worn strap. He turned it on, surprised when it powered up. The battery icon showed 15%. He shouldn't look. This was private, but his fingers moved to the playback button anyway. The screen filled with images. Becca had been photographing a sunrise over the harbor. The photos were stunning, capturing the exact moment when golden light broke through purple clouds and set the water on fire. She had always had an eye for finding beauty in ordinary moments. He scrolled through more images. A child feeding pigeons in the park, an elderly couple holding hands on a bench, a street musician playing guitar. Eyes closed in concentration. Then he reached a photo that made his breath catch. It was a picture of their old apartment building, taken from across the street. The window to what had been their bedroom glowed with warm light. Someone else lived there now, living a life in the space where Daniel and Becca had once built their own. The timestamp showed it was taken. 2 weeks ago she had gone back. After 3 years, she had gone back to photograph the place they had called home. Daniel's hands trembled as he turned off the camera and set it down gently. Find something interesting? He looked up. Amanda stood there holding 2 large coffee cups and a paper bag that smelled like fresh bagels. Her expression was guarded, but less hostile than the night before. She took a picture of our old apartment, Daniel said quietly. Recently, Amanda sat down beside him, handing him one of the coffees. She goes there sometimes. Usually on bad days. She sits in her car across the street and just stares at the windows. Why? Amanda took a long sip of coffee before answering. Because my sister is an idiot who never learned how to stop loving people, even when they hurt her. Daniel winced. That's not fair to her? No, it's not. But it's true. Amanda pulled a bagel from the bag and unwrapped it slowly. Do you want to know what the last 3 years have been like for Becca? Really no? Daniel nodded. The first 6 months, she barely functioned. She moved into my spare room because she couldn't afford her own place. She would wake up crying. She stopped taking photos. She stopped doing anything except going through the motions of existing. Amanda's voice grew harder. Then she pulled herself together. Started freelancing again. Built up her portfolio. Got her own apartment. From the outside, she looked fine. Successful even. But I knew better. What do you mean? She never dated anyone. Never even tried. She threw herself into work the same way you did. Anytime I suggested she move on, she would change the subject. And on anniversaries, birthdays, random Tuesday nights, she would disappear for hours. I always knew where she was. Outside our old apartment, or at the coffee shop where you used to meet for breakfast, or the park where you proposed. She was haunting her own memories, Daniel, and it was killing her slowly. Daniel felt something crack inside his chest. I didn't know. Of course you did. You were too busy building buildings to notice you'd destroyed a person. The words hit like a physical blow. But before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. His mother's name flashed on the screen. "I have to take this," he said, standing up and walking toward the windows. "Daniel, thank God," Diane Bradford's voice was sharp with concern. "I just heard about Rebecca." "How is she?" "Critical, but stable. She's in a medically induced coma, and they called you." "After all this time?" "I was still her emergency contact, Mom." There was a pause. "I'm coming to the hospital. You don't need to do that. My son is sitting vigil for his ex-wife." "Of course I'm coming." The call ended before Daniel could protest further. He closed his eyes, dreading the complications his mother would bring. Diane Bradford had never understood why her successful, driven son had married a freelance photographer with an unpredictable income and a bohemian lifestyle. She had been quietly pleased when they divorced. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 weeks ago. She had gone back. After 3 years, she had gone back to photograph the place they had called home. Daniel's hands trembled as he turned off the camera and set it down gently. "Find something interesting?" He looked up. Amanda stood there holding 2 large coffee cups and a paper bag that smelled like fresh bagels. Her expression was guarded but less hostile than the night before. "She took a picture of our old apartment," Daniel said quietly. "Recently, Amanda sat down beside him, handing him one of the coffees. She goes there sometimes, usually on bad days. She sits in her car across the street and just stares at the windows." "Why?" Amanda took a long sip of coffee before answering. "Because my sister is an idiot who never learned how to stop loving people, even when they hurt her. That's not fair to her." "No, it's not. But it's true." Amanda pulled a bagel from the bag and unwrapped it slowly. "Do you want to know what the last 3 years have been like for Becca?" "Really no?" Daniel nodded. "The first 6 months, she barely functioned. She moved into my spare room because she couldn't afford her own place. She would wake up crying. She stopped taking photos. She stopped doing anything except going through the motions of existing." Amanda's voice grew harder. "Then she pulled herself together, started freelancing again. Built up her portfolio, got her own apartment. From the outside, she looked fine. Successful, even. But I knew better." "What do you mean?" "She never dated anyone. Never even tried. She threw herself into work the same way you did. Anytime I suggested she'd move on, she would change the subject. And on anniversaries, birthdays, random Tuesday nights, she would disappear for hours. I always knew where she was. Outside our old apartment, or at the coffee shop where you used to meet for breakfast, or the park where you proposed. She was haunting her own memories, Daniel, and it was killing her slowly." Daniel felt something crack inside his chest. "I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You were too busy building buildings to notice you'd destroyed a person." The words hit like a physical blow. But before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. His mother's name flashed on the screen. "I have to take this," he said, standing up and walking toward the windows. "Daniel, thank God." Diane Bradford's voice was sharp with concern. "I just heard about Rebecca." "How is she?" "Critical, but stable. She's in a medically induced coma. And they called you?" "After all this time?" "I was still her emergency contact, Mom." There was a pause. "I'm coming to the hospital. You don't need to do that. My son is sitting vigil for his ex-wife." "Of course I'm coming." God. The call ended before Daniel could protest further. He closed his eyes, dreading the complications his mother would bring. Diane Bradford had never understood why her successful, driven son had married a freelance photographer with an unpredictable income and a bohemian lifestyle. She had been quietly pleased when they divorced. The best friend, an hour later, the elevator doors opened to reveal a man in his late 20s with messy black hair, thick framed glasses, and a camera bag slung over his shoulder. He looked around the waiting area frantically until his eyes landed on Amanda. Amanda stood up, and the man rushed over, pulling her into a tight hug. "How bad?" he asked, his voice strained. "Bad, but she's fighting." Tommy noticed Daniel for the first time. His expression shifted from grief to cold recognition. "You, Tommy Chen," Daniel said carefully. "It's been a while. Tommy had been Becca's best friend since college, her partner in countless photography projects, and one of the few people who had been openly angry about the divorce. 3 years, Tommy said flatly. 3 years of radio silence, and now you show up because they needed someone to sign papers? Tommy, stop, Amanda said quietly. He's been here all night. He hasn't left her side. One night doesn't erase 3 years of abandonment. Daniel didn't argue. Tommy was right. Instead, he said, she kept my name as her emergency contact. I'm trying to understand why. Tommy's anger wavered slightly. He set his camera bag down and ran a hand through his hair. Because Becca's loyal to a fault. Because even though you broke her heart, she never stopped believing that if she really needed you, you would come, and I did. Congratulations. You met the absolute minimum standard of human decency. Amanda stepped between them. Both of you, stop. This isn't helping Becca. She looked at Tommy. Did you bring what I asked? Tommy nodded, unzipping his bag. He pulled out a smaller camera case and handed it to Amanda. Her backup camera and the memory cards from her current projects. I thought she might want them when she wakes up. Amanda opened the case carefully. Inside was another Canon, newer than the one from the accident. She turned it on and scrolled through recent photos. Her expression changed. Daniel, you need to see this. Reluctantly, Daniel took the camera. The screen showed a series of photos taken inside what looked like a small apartment. But it wasn't the apartment that caught his attention. It was what the photos captured. A corner desk covered in architectural magazines. Several of them had sticky notes marking pages. One note, visible in the photo, read Dee's style and Becca's handwriting. A bookshelf with several books about architecture and urban planning. A bulletin board covered in printed articles. Daniel recognized his own name in several headlines. Bradford Designs wins city contract. Riverside Complex breaks ground. Local architect makes national list. She had been following his career, collecting information about his work, studying his projects. She never stopped caring, Amanda said softly, even when she should have. Daniel handed the camera back, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. The mother arrives. Diane Bradford arrived at noon, dressed impeccably in a gray suit despite the early hour. She swept into the waiting area with the air of someone accustomed to being in charge. Her eyes found Daniel immediately. Sweetheart, she said, pulling him into a brief, efficient hug. You look terrible. Thanks, Mom. Diane turned to Amanda and Tommy, her expression cooling slightly. Amanda, you remember me? Mrs. Bradford, Amanda replied neutrally. And you must be one of Rebecca's friends, Diane said to Tommy. And yes, I'm one of the people who was actually there for Becca over the past 3 years. Diane's lips thinned. I see. Daniel intervened quickly. Mom, can we talk privately? They moved to a corner of the waiting area. Diane studied her son's face carefully. You care about her. Still, I never stopped. Then why did you let her go? Because she deserved better than what I was giving her. I thought I was doing the right thing. Diane sighed, some of her coldness melting. Daniel, I may not have approved of your marriage, but I never wanted you to be unhappy. And you've been unhappy for 3 years, whether you admit it or not? It doesn't matter what I feel. All that matters right now is that she survives. What then? Daniel looked toward the ICU doors. Then I hope she gives me a chance to be the person I should have been all along. The vigil continues. The afternoon stretched into evening. Dr. Whitmore, cardiologist, stopped by to review Becca's progress. He was younger than Dr. Green, with kind eyes and an easy manner. Her numbers are improving, he told the group gathered in the waiting room. Heart rate steady, blood pressure stable. We're pleased with her response to treatment. When will you wake her up? Daniel asked. Tomorrow morning, if everything continues improving, we'll reduce the sedation gradually and monitor her response. But I want to prepare you all for what to expect. Everyone leaned forward. She may be confused, disoriented, or frightened when she first wakes. Her memory of the accident might be fragmented or missing entirely. And emotionally, she'll be vulnerable. Recovery from this type of trauma isn't just physical. It's psychological too. Dr. Whitmore looked specifically at Daniel. You're listed as her primary contact, Mr. Bradford, but I understand the relationship is complicated. I need to know if your presence will cause her additional stress. I don't know, Daniel answered honestly. But if it does, I'll leave. Her recovery comes first. Dr. Whitmore nodded approvingly. That's the right answer. We'll assess her reaction tomorrow and adjust accordingly. After the doctor left, Tommy spoke up. I need to say something. Everyone turned to him. Look, Bradford, I don't like you. I think you're an idiot who threw away the best thing that ever happened to you. But Becca clearly still has feelings for you, and that matters. So here's the deal. You get one chance. One. You mess this up. You hurt her again, and I will personally make your life a living hell. Are we clear? Daniel met his eyes. Crystal clear. And for what it's worth, I think you're right about me being an idiot. Tommy blinked, surprised. Oh, well, good then. Amanda actually smiled. I never thought I'd see the day when Tommy Chen ran out of insults. The tension in the room eased slightly. They fell into a routine, taking turns visiting Becca in 5-minute intervals, bringing each other food and coffee, sharing stories about Becca's life over the past 3 years. Daniel learned things he had never known. Becca had won a regional photography award. She had volunteered at a children's hospital teaching kids how to use cameras. She had traveled to Iceland last year to photograph the Northern Lights.
She had built a full, meaningful life without him. The realization was both painful and hopeful. She had survived. She had thrived, in her own way. She wasn't the broken woman Amanda had described from the early months. She had become stronger, more independent. But she had also kept his name in her medical files. She had photographed their old apartment. She had followed his career. Whatever existed between them wasn't finished. It had simply been paused, waiting for the right moment to resume. Night falls again. As darkness settled over the city, Diane announced she was going home. Daniel, you should come with me. Get some real sleep in a real bed. I'm staying. Sweetheart, you'll make yourself sick. I'm staying, Mom. I told Becca I wouldn't leave, and I meant it. Diane sighed but didn't argue further. She kissed his forehead. Call me when she wakes up. Tommy left shortly after, promising to return in the morning. That left Daniel and Amanda alone in the waiting area. You should go home too, Daniel told her. Get some actual rest. Amanda shook her head. I've been taking care of my sister since we were kids. I'm not stopping now. They sat in silence for a while, watching nurses change shifts, listening to the hospital's nighttime sounds. Can I ask you something? Daniel said eventually. Sure. The envelope. Do you know what's in it? Amanda's expression grew thoughtful. She wrote it about a month ago. Right after she found out you were featured in that National Architecture magazine. She wouldn't tell me what it said, just that if anything ever happened to her, you should have it. That sounds ominous. Becca has always been dramatic. Even when we were kids, she wrote everything down. Kept journals, wrote letters she never sent. I think writing was her way of processing emotions she couldn't speak out loud. Daniel pulled the envelope from his jacket pocket, staring at his name written in Becca's flowing script. Part of me wants to open it right now. The other part is terrified of what it might say. Then wait. Let her give it to you when she's ready. Some words need to be spoken, not just read. Daniel nodded, tucking the envelope back into his pocket. You're a good sister, Amanda. Becca's lucky to have you. I know, Amanda said with a small smile. And despite everything, despite all the valid reasons I have to hate you, I'm glad you're here. Becca needs you. She might not want to admit it. She might even fight it. But she needs you. I won't let her down again. You better not. Because next time, I won't be as friendly. They both laughed quietly, the sound feeling strange after so much tension. As midnight approached, a nurse appeared with blankets and pillows. "You two are clearly not leaving. Might as well be comfortable." Daniel made a makeshift bed in the corner, but he knew he wouldn't sleep. Every hour, he got up and walked to the ICU windows, looking through the glass toward where Becca lay surrounded by machines. Tomorrow, she would wake up. Tomorrow, 3 years of silence would end. Tomorrow, he would see her eyes open and know whether he still had a place in her life. The envelope in his pocket felt heavier with each passing hour. Whatever words waited inside, whatever truth Becca had written, would soon be revealed. Daniel pressed his hand against the cold window glass, looking at the faint reflection of his own tired face. Tomorrow, he whispered to his reflection, to Becca, to the universe itself. Tomorrow we start again. The morning of truth. Dawn broke slowly over Memorial General Hospital, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Daniel watched from the window, coffee cup in hand, as the city woke up around him. He had managed maybe an hour of sleep, his dreams filled with fragmented memories and imagined futures. Dr. Green appeared at 6:30, looking refreshed despite the early hour. "Mr. Bradford, Miss Montgomery. We're ready to begin reducing the sedation. Would you like to be there when she starts waking up?" Daniel and Amanda both stood immediately. "One at a time," Dr. Green cautioned. "We need to monitor her response carefully. Too much stimulation could be overwhelming." Amanda looked at Daniel. For a moment, he thought she would insist on going first. Instead, she said, "You go. You're the one she asked for." "Are you sure?" "No. But I think it's what she would want." Dr. Green led Daniel through the ICU. Becca looked the same as yesterday, still pale, still motionless, but somehow the morning light made her seem more alive. A nurse was adjusting monitors, preparing medications. "We've already started reducing the sedation," Dr. Green explained. "It'll take about 30 to 40 minutes for her to begin responding. You can talk to her. Your voice might help orient her as she wakes." Daniel nodded, his throat tight. The nurse finished her preparations and left, giving him privacy. He pulled the chair close to the bed and took Becca's hand. It felt warmer today, more like she was sleeping rather than suspended in some liminal space. "Hey, Becca," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's Daniel. I don't know if you can hear me, but the doctors say you're going to wake up soon." No response. Just the steady rhythm of the machines. "I've been thinking about what to say when you open your eyes. I've practiced a dozen different speeches in my head. But none of them feel right because the truth is pretty simple." He paused, gathering courage. "I was wrong. About everything. About thinking work mattered more than you. About believing you'd be better off without me. About letting you walk away." He watched her face for any sign of awareness, any flicker of response. "Tommy was here yesterday. He wanted to punch me, which I probably deserved. Amanda has been amazing, protective like you always said she was. Even my mom came, which shocked everyone." He laughed softly. "You've got a whole team of people out there who love you fiercely." Becca's fingers twitched slightly. Daniel's heart jumped. "That's it," he encouraged. "Come back, Becca. We're all waiting for you." Her eyelids fluttered. Once. Twice. Then slowly, painfully slowly, they began to open. The first look. Becca's eyes opened to confusion. The harsh lights made her squint. Her throat felt raw from the breathing tube that had been removed hours earlier. Everything hurt, a dull, persistent ache that seemed to come from everywhere at once. But what she saw first was Daniel's face. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Or dead. Or caught in some strange space between the two. Daniel looked tired, unshaven, wearing the same clothes he'd probably worn for days. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen in years, a desperate, raw vulnerability. "Daniel?" Her voice came out as barely a croak. His face transformed with relief. "Yeah. It's me. You're in the hospital. You were in an accident, but you're going to be okay." The memories came flooding back. Rain. Headlights. The sickening crunch of metal. Then nothing. "How long?" she managed to ask. 2 days. You've been in surgery and recovery for 2 days. Becca tried to process this. 2 days of nothing. 2 days where she could have died. "You came." "Of course I came. But we're not together anymore. We haven't been for 3 years. Daniel's expression flickered with pain. "You never changed your emergency contact. They called me. And even if they hadn't, even if your name just appeared on the news, I would have come. I would always come for you, Becca." Tears welled up in her eyes. She tried to lift her hand to wipe them away, but the movement sent shooting pain through her chest. Daniel noticed immediately. "Don't move too much. Your ribs are bruised, and your heart needs to stay calm. Here." He gently wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumb, the gesture so tender it made her cry harder. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why are you being so kind?" "Because I never stopped loving you. I just stopped knowing how to show it. And that's the biggest regret of my life." Before Becca could respond, Dr. Green entered, all business. "Miss Montgomery, welcome back. I'm Dr. Green. How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a truck." "Close. It was actually a sedan running a red light. But you're very fortunate. Another few minutes, and we wouldn't be having this conversation." The doctor began a series of standard checks, asking Becca to follow a light with her eyes, squeeze her hands, answer basic questions. Through it all, Daniel stayed close, his presence both comforting and confusing. When Dr. Green finished, she looked pleased. "Everything looks good. Your cognitive function is intact, and your heart rhythm is stable. But you're not out of the woods yet. The next few weeks will require careful monitoring, medication, and absolute minimal stress. Do you understand?" Becca nodded weakly. "Good. I'll let your sister know you're awake. She's been camped out in the waiting room." After the doctor left, Daniel and Becca stared at each other, years of unspoken words hanging in the air between them. "The envelope," Becca said suddenly, her eyes widening. "There was an envelope in my car. Did they find it?" Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled it out. "This one?" Relief and fear crossed her face. "You didn't open it. I wanted you to be awake when I read it. Some things shouldn't be discovered in the dark." "The letter." Amanda burst into the room before Becca could respond, tears streaming down her face. "You're awake. Oh my God, you're actually awake." She rushed to the bedside, carefully hugging her sister while avoiding the various tubes and wires. "You scared me. You scared me so badly." "I'm sorry," Becca whispered. "I didn't mean to." "I know. I know you didn't." Amanda pulled back, wiping her eyes. "You look terrible, by the way." "Thanks. You look pretty rough yourself." The sisters laughed through their tears. Daniel started to stand, thinking they needed privacy, but Becca reached out and grabbed his wrist. "Stay. Please." He sat back down, surprised. Amanda noticed the gesture and raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I'm going to call Mom and Dad. They've been calling every hour for updates. They wanted to fly in, but I told them to wait until you were stable." "Good call. Dad would have driven the nurses crazy." After Amanda left, the room fell quiet again. Becca looked down at the envelope still in Daniel's hand. "I wrote that after I saw you featured in Architecture Today magazine. You looked so successful, so put together. And I realized I still had so many things I never said to you. You can tell me now. I'm here. I'm listening. I don't know if I can. Some of it is angry. Some of it is sad. All of it is honest. Daniel held the envelope out to her. Then let's read it together. Whatever it says, we face it together. Becca took the envelope with shaking hands. She broke the seal and pulled out several handwritten pages. Her own words stared back at her, written during a late night when wine and regret had loosened her emotions. She began to read aloud, her voice stronger now. Dear Daniel, I'm writing this at 2 a.m, which was always your favorite time to work. I never told you how much I hated those hours, how the silence of an empty bed felt like drowning. But I'm telling you now. Daniel flinched but stayed quiet. I loved you completely. The kind of love that's supposed to be enough to build a life on. But love isn't enough when it's only given in the spaces between meetings and deadlines. Love needs time. It needs attention. It needs to be chosen, actively and daily. She paused, her voice catching. You chose your career. Every single time, you chose it over me. And I don't blame you, not really. You had dreams to fulfill, buildings to design, a reputation to build. But I had dreams too. I dreamed of Sunday mornings spent in bed, reading the paper together. I dreamed of spontaneous trips to nowhere special. I dreamed of a partner who remembered our anniversary without a calendar reminder. A tear rolled down her cheek. Daniel reached over and gently wiped it away, just as he had earlier. I left because staying was killing me slowly. Every day you didn't notice I was fading. Every night you came home too late for dinner. Every weekend you spent at the office. Each one was a tiny death, and I couldn't survive them anymore. Becca looked up from the letter, meeting Daniel's eyes. But here's the part one never sent, the part one wrote later. She turned to the last page, her voice softening. The truth is, I never stopped loving you. I moved on. I built a life. I found success and purpose and meaning. But there was always a space shaped like you that nothing else could fill. I kept your name in my medical files because somewhere deep down, I believed that if I really needed you, you would come. And I hated myself for that belief. For being weak enough to hope. Daniel's eyes were wet now, tears threatening to spill over. So if you're reading this, it means something happened to me. It means you came when I needed you. And I want you to know that despite everything, despite the hurt and the anger and the years apart, that means everything. It means I was right to believe in you, even when I shouldn't have. Becca finished reading and set the letter down. That's it. That's everything I couldn't say to your face. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. I don't deserve your faith in me. I proved that every day of our marriage. But Becca, these past 2 days, sitting in that waiting room, not knowing if you'd survive, I realized something. What? That every building I ever designed, every project I completed, every award I won, none of it matters. None of it means anything if I don't have someone to share it with. And not just someone, you. It was always supposed to be you. The turning point. Becca wanted to believe him. Every cell in her body wanted to trust that this time would be different. But she had learned the hard way that people rarely change, no matter how much they promise. Daniel, you're saying all the right things. But you said nice things before too. Right after we got married, you promised we'd always make time for each other. 6 months later, you were working 70-hour weeks. You're right. Words are easy. And I've proven my words aren't worth much. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. So I'm not going to make promises. I'm going to make a plan. A plan? He turned back to face her. I'm good at plans. It's what I do. So here's the plan. I'm taking a leave of absence from my firm. 3 months, minimum. I've already talked to my partners. Becca's eyes widened. Daniel, you can't just leave your career. I'm not leaving it. I'm pausing it. There's a difference. And the world won't stop turning if I step back for a while. He moved closer to the bed. The doctor said you need someone with you for the first month. No stress, no being alone, no uncertainty. I'm going to be that person if you'll let me. And after the month? After I'm recovered? Then we see where we are. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people figuring out if they can build something better than what they had before. Becca studied his face, looking for cracks in his sincerity. Why now? Why does it take me almost dying for you to realize I mattered? It was a fair question, one Daniel had asked himself repeatedly over the past 2 days. Because I'm an idiot who needed the universe to hit me over the head with reality. Because I spent 3 years telling myself I made the right choice, that you were better off without me. And because the moment that nurse said your name on the phone, every lie I told myself shattered. He sat back down, taking her hand carefully. I can't change the past. I can't give you back the 3 years we lost. But if you give me a chance, I can show you that I learned something from losing you. The photograph. Before Becca could respond, Tommy burst into the room, nearly colliding with a nurse. Becca. Thank God. He rushed to her bedside, nearly pushing Daniel out of the way. Don't you ever scare me like that again. Do you understand? Never. Becca smiled weakly. Hey, Tommy. Miss me? Miss you? I've been planning your funeral and your comeback simultaneously. Do you have any idea how emotionally confusing that is? Despite everything, Becca laughed. It hurt her ribs, but it felt good. Sorry to put you through that. Tommy glanced at Daniel, his expression cooling. Bradford. Still here, I see. Still here, Daniel confirmed. Tommy turned back to Becca, pulling his camera bag around. I brought you something. Amanda said you might want it when you woke up. He carefully removed a camera and handed it to Becca. She recognized it immediately as her backup, the one she kept for special projects. You didn't have to bring this now. Actually, I did. Because there's something on there you need to see. Something I think both of you need to see. Intrigued, Becca turned on the camera and navigated to the photo gallery. Tommy leaned over and pointed to a specific folder. That one. The project you were working on before the accident. Becca opened the folder, and her breath caught. Inside were dozens of photos, all of them centered around a single theme: second chances. There were images of abandoned buildings being renovated into vibrant community centers. Pictures of overgrown gardens being restored to life. Photographs of old, weathered hands creating new art. A butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. A sunrise after a storm. Each image told a story of renewal, of things that seemed finished finding new purpose. Daniel looked over her shoulder, seeing the images. These are beautiful, Becca. What was the project? She was quiet for a moment before answering. It was a photo essay called What Comes After. About things that find new life after endings. I was going to submit it to a gallery. You should still submit it, Tommy said firmly. This is your best work. Becca scrolled through more images, stopping on one that made her heart clench. It was a split image, showing the same old tree in 2 seasons. On the left, it stood bare and seemingly dead in winter. On the right, the same tree exploded with spring blossoms. She had titled it, The Same Roots, A Different Season. Daniel stared at the image, understanding dawning in his eyes. You weren't just photographing buildings and gardens, were you? No, Becca admitted softly. I was trying to convince myself that dead things can come back to life. That endings can be beginnings if you're willing to wait through the winter. Tommy straightened up. On that profound note, I'm going to leave you two alone. But Becca, I'm serious about the gallery. You should submit this. After Tommy left, Daniel picked up Becca's camera and looked through more images. Each one was technically perfect but also emotionally resonant in a way only Becca could achieve. You've gotten even better, he said with genuine admiration. These aren't just photos. They're stories. I had a lot of emotions to process. Photography was cheaper than therapy. He smiled. Fair point. He set the camera down carefully. Can I show you something? At her nod, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his own photos. I took these over the past 3 years. I told myself I was documenting my projects, but that's not really what I was doing. He handed her the phone. The images showed buildings at different stages of construction. But in each photo, if you looked carefully, you could see Daniel had captured something specific: empty spaces. An unused balcony perfect for morning coffee. A window seat designed for two. A kitchen island with room for conversation. Every building I designed, he said quietly, I was unconsciously creating spaces for the life I wasn't living. Spaces for couples, for families, for people who actually came home to each other. Becca looked up at him, something shifting in her eyes. You were building the home we never had. Yeah. I think I was. The decision. Dr. Whitmore arrived for afternoon rounds, pleased with Becca's progress. You're doing remarkably well, Miss Montgomery. If you continue improving at this rate, we might be able to discharge you in a few days. But you'll need round-the-clock care for at least a month. I'll be there, Daniel said immediately. Dr. Whitmore looked between them, sensing the complicated dynamics. Miss Montgomery, you need to be comfortable with whoever is providing your care. If this arrangement causes stress, we need to make alternative plans. Becca was quiet for a long moment. Everyone waited. Daniel, Amanda standing in the doorway, Dr. Whitmore with his pen hovering over his chart. Finally, Becca spoke. 3 years ago, I walked away because I had to save myself. Today, I almost died because a stranger ran a red light. Life is fragile and unpredictable, and the one thing I learned in those 2 days of nothing is that I don't want to waste any more time on regrets. She looked at Daniel. I don't trust you yet. I don't even know if I can trust you. But I'm willing to try. Not because I'm weak or because I can't be alone, but because maybe we both deserve a second chance to get it right. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I won't waste it. You better not, Amanda interjected from the doorway. Because I will personally destroy you if you hurt her again. Noted, Daniel said with a watery smile. Dr. Whitmore made notes on his chart. All right then. Mr. Bradford, I'll need you to attend several training sessions on medication management, wound care, and cardiac monitoring. This isn't just about being present. It's about being competent. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. We'll start the discharge process tomorrow. 3 days later. Becca's new apartment, the one she'd moved into 2 years ago, felt both familiar and strange as Daniel helped her inside. Everything was exactly as she'd left it 3 days ago, before the accident that changed everything. Photos covered the walls, her best work displayed in simple black frames. A cozy reading chair sat by the window, sunlight streaming across a small table covered in camera equipment. It was a space that reflected who Becca had become: independent, creative, self-sufficient. Daniel set down the bags of medical supplies and prescriptions. Where do you want to set up? The doctor said you need to avoid stairs for a while. The bedroom is on this level, thankfully. And there's a bathroom right next to it. He helped her settle onto the couch, making sure pillows supported her back properly. The movements were awkward, both of them hyper-aware of touching, of proximity, of the strangeness of this new dynamic. "I'll sleep on the couch," Daniel said, already mentally arranging the space. "That way I'm close if you need anything at night." Becca nodded, exhaustion creeping over her. "Daniel?" "Yeah. Thank you for this. For putting your life on hold." He sat down carefully on the edge of the couch. "I'm not putting my life on hold. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like my life is actually starting again." Over the next few weeks, they fell into a routine. Daniel learned to manage Becca's complex medication schedule, mastering the difference between the heart rhythm pills, the blood thinners, and the pain management. He attended every follow-up appointment, taking notes like he was studying for the most important test of his life. He cooked meals from the cardiac healthy recipes Dr. Whitmore had provided, discovering that he actually enjoyed the creativity of cooking when he had time to focus on it. He helped Becca with physical therapy exercises, encouraging her through the frustration of relearning how to move without pain. But more importantly, he learned to just be present. They watched movies together, Daniel resisting the urge to check his work email. They played cards, Becca teaching him games she'd learned from her grandmother. They talked about everything and nothing, slowly rebuilding the foundation of trust that had crumbled years ago. One evening, 3 weeks into recovery, Becca found Daniel looking through her photo essay on his laptop. She'd finally submitted it to the gallery Tommy had recommended. "These really are extraordinary," Daniel said, not looking up. "You've captured something I spent years trying to design into buildings but never quite achieved." "What's that?" "Hope. The belief that broken things can be fixed, that endings can transform into beginnings." He finally looked at her. "You see possibility where I only saw structures." Becca moved to sit beside him, still moving carefully but with increasing strength. "That's because you're an architect. You think in blueprints and foundations. I'm a photographer. I think in light and shadow, in the spaces between moments. Maybe that's why we struggled before. We were speaking different languages. And now?" Daniel closed the laptop and turned to face her fully. "Now I'm trying to learn yours. And hoping you might want to learn mine." She smiled, the first truly unguarded smile he'd seen since she woke up in the hospital. "I think I'd like that." The gallery opening. 6 weeks after the accident, Becca received the call she'd been waiting for. The gallery accepted her photo essay. Even better, they wanted to feature it in their upcoming exhibition on renewal and transformation. The opening was scheduled for a Friday evening. Dr. Whitmore cleared her to attend, with strict instructions to avoid stress and leave if she felt tired. Daniel helped her get ready, learning that picking out the right outfit was far more complicated than he'd ever imagined. "What about this one?" he asked, holding up a deep blue dress. "Too formal." "This one?" "Too casual." "Becca, at this rate, you'll be choosing between 2 outfits while everyone else is leaving the gallery." She laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in months. "Fine. The blue dress. But you need to wear something other than that work shirt." "What's wrong with my work shirt?" "Nothing, if you're going to a board meeting. We're going to an art gallery." Daniel ended up in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater, an outfit Amanda approved when she arrived to drive them to the gallery. "Look at you, Bradford. You almost look like a human being instead of a corporate drone." "I'm taking that as a compliment." "You should." The gallery was packed when they arrived, the energy electric with appreciation for art and the free wine flowing liberally. Becca's photo essay occupied an entire wall, each image beautifully matted and framed. Daniel watched people study the photographs, seeing their expressions shift from curiosity to understanding to emotion. A woman stood in front of the split image of the winter and spring tree for a full 5 minutes, tears running down her face. "Your work moves people," he said softly to Becca. "Really moves them. That's all I ever wanted. To make people feel something real." Tommy appeared with champagne, which he immediately took back when he remembered Becca couldn't drink alcohol with her medications. Right. Sparkling cider for you. But we're celebrating anyway. Look at this turnout. The gallery owner, a sophisticated woman named Jennifer Park, made her way through the crowd to Becca. Miss Montgomery, this is extraordinary. We've already had 3 potential buyers express serious interest. And there's a critic from the Times here who seems very impressed. Becca's eyes widened. The New York Times? The very same. I think you're about to become quite well known in the art photography world. After Jennifer moved on to greet other guests, Becca turned to Daniel, her expression a mix of excitement and disbelief. This is happening. This is really happening. You deserve it. Every bit of it. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. I couldn't have done this without you. These past weeks, having you there, believing in me, it gave me the courage to actually submit the work. Becca, you had that courage all along. I just got lucky enough to witness it this time. As the evening progressed, Daniel found himself standing alone in front of the final image in the essay. It showed 2 paths in a forest, diverging and then coming back together further ahead, meeting at a wooden bridge over a stream. Becca had titled it, Different Roads, Same Destination. He felt her presence beside him before she spoke. That's my favorite one, she said softly. I took it in upstate New York last fall. I almost didn't include it in the series. Why not? Because it felt too hopeful. Too much like wishful thinking. But Tommy convinced me that sometimes wishful thinking is just another word for faith. Daniel took her hand, feeling how naturally their fingers intertwined now. I'm glad you kept it. It's perfect. They stood there together, 2 people who had taken different roads for 3 years, now standing at the bridge wondering if they could cross it together. Daniel? Yeah. I think I'm ready to trust you again. Not completely, not yet. But enough to try building something new instead of just mourning what we lost. He turned to face her fully, his free hand gently cupping her cheek. That's all I could ever ask for. A chance to prove I learned from losing you. And if we fail again? Then at least we'll fail having actually tried. Together. Becca smiled, leaning into his touch. Around them, people celebrated her art, the culmination of years of work and healing. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the small space between them, finally closing after 3 long years. 6 months later. The coffee shop where they had signed their divorce papers looked exactly the same. Same worn wooden tables, same mismatched chairs, same barista who made perfect lattes. Daniel and Becca sat in the corner booth, a folder of papers between them. But these weren't divorce papers. These were plans for a collaborative project, combining Daniel's architectural expertise with Becca's photographic vision. Community Art Center, Becca read from the proposal. Converting the old warehouse on 5th Street into a space for photographers, painters, and sculptors. Daniel, this is ambitious. It's meant to be. I've spent my career designing spaces that hold people. I want to design a space that holds dreams. She looked up at him, seeing not the overworked, emotionally distant man she'd divorced, but someone transformed. He still worked hard, still took his career seriously. But now he knew when to close the laptop, when to choose the present over the future, when to choose her. Partners? She asked, extending her hand formally across the table. He took it, smiling. Partners. In all things. They shook on it, but Daniel didn't let go of her hand. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Becca's breath caught. Before you panic, he said quickly, this isn't what you think it is. Or maybe it is, but not in the traditional way. He opened the box. Inside wasn't an engagement ring, but 2 simple silver bands. Promise rings, he explained. I know we're not ready to get remarried. We might never be ready for that again, and that's okay. But I wanted to give you something that represents what we've built over the past 6 months. A promise that I choose you, every day, in ways big and small. A promise that your dreams matter as much as mine. A promise that I've finally learned what love actually requires. Becca's eyes filled with tears. Daniel Bradford, when did you become such a romantic? When I realized romance isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up consistently and actually meaning it. She took one of the rings from the box and slipped it onto her right hand. It fit perfectly. Then I promised to trust the growth instead of fearing the past. To build something new instead of trying to resurrect what died. To meet you where you are instead of where I wish you'd been. Daniel put on his own ring, and they sat there, hands clasped across the table in the same coffee shop where they'd ended their marriage, now beginning something entirely different. Not a do-over. Not a second chance at the same story. But a completely new narrative, written by two people who had learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what truly matters. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent to small moments of personal transformation. But inside that coffee shop, in that corner booth, two people who had been strangers, then lovers, then ex-spouses, and finally partners again, sat together in comfortable silence. And for the first time in years, neither of them was checking the time, planning the next meeting, or thinking about anywhere else they'd rather be. They were simply there, together, exactly where they were supposed to be.